Tank, I may as well go and broadcast.
Hey man, I got that new 10-max Thrustmaster wheel. It's going down.
Xbox One?
I can't wait to play when I get home.
You'll let me play?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to play first. Yeah.
You know, I'll race it for it.
Well, I have to hand it off.
Hello. Well, good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to the viewers who've joined us here for round 6 of the Formula Sim Racing ACE Championship, coming to you from the historic Silverstone circuit in the village of Towcester in Northamptonshire in the United Kingdom. And it's probably no surprise that the teams at the moment are making hurried decisions about what to do, and what we've got is fairly changeable weather, which is not unlike Silverstone. And We deliver the weather in real time, real world weather here in Formula Sim Racing. So the teams, nobody in the administration or the teams knows exactly what's going to happen. If anybody cares to check it out on Wonderground Wonder Map, you'll see there's a bit of a rain cloud hovering over the circuit at the moment, with every chance of clearing. It's about 12 degrees. Wind is coming from the southwest up to 16 kilometres per hour, and we gradually expect this rain to clear. But what the teams have got to deal with, of course, is the fact that we have parc ferme in place, and the drivers have got to ask themselves, do they want to qualify with a wet setup to optimise their qualification chances, or do they want to bank on it being a dry race, which we think it will be. It's scheduled to sort of be dry within half an hour or so. So yeah, that's a very real world, real life issue the teams have got to deal with at the moment. Coming into this round 6, the championship sits at an interesting phase. Sander Callis is leading on 95 points. He's had 2 wins, a second, a third, and an 8th place from the NetRex driver. And I can tell you now, having watched qualifying, that the practice, that if it stayed wet, Sander would be looking very, very strong indeed, because he was the quickest driver in practice in the wet. Second place in the championship, 13 points adrift from him, is Felix van Delft from Flag to Flag Racing, and Felix has had a win, 2 seconds and a third. And they're the only races that he's scored points from. So he's got a fantastic average points haul to his credit. And certainly over the course of a 19 race season, Felix is going to have every chance to challenge Sander. Sergi Harras lying third with 66 points, also from Flag to Flag. Dewald Nell in 4th on 46 points, tied with Alves, also on 46. Shoa on 38. Van der Neet on 30 points. Giro and Rosland tied for 8th place with 28 points apiece. Florian Becker on 27 holds 10th place. Randy Van Buren with 25 points is in 11th, but that 25 points was earned from a win. So his sole result at this stage is a victory. 12th is Victor Ivanov. 13th, Lucas Schmidt, tied with George Winter. And Blanton in 15th place. So the drivers are heading out onto the track now. Qualifying has actually begun, and the track is, as you can no doubt see very clearly on the stream, is still wet. So the drivers have got 20 minutes to complete qualifying, and there's going to be some hurried thinking about tactics, because over that 20 minutes we can expect to see a drying line form. All the cars that I can see at the moment are on full wets. But if a drying line forms, and I can already see traces of a drying line, the drivers will quickly switch to inters or dry tyres. So I think you can expect over the next 19 minutes to see some pretty dramatic changes of fortune as we view the qualifying. And I'm looking at the weather map live here, and the rain picture has actually moved off the village of Taucester. So I think we can safely say that it is going to clear, but there is another spot of cloud just to the southwest, and that's where the wind's coming from. We've had the unique opportunity, Tank Applegate, who's actually running the stream, lives just a few miles southwest of Silverstone, and he's been giving me the weather in real time as it passes over his house. And what we've been finding is about 5 or 10 minutes after the weather arrives at Tank's house, it arrives at the circuit. So we've got a bit of an inside running on the weather. So it's interesting from the driver's perspective at the moment. They're out there drying the track, and if you wanted to be really greedy, you'd sit in the pits and wait for the other guys to do the work. But somebody's got to do it. And Felix van Delft, I think, is the first person to start a flying lap. And he's out there driving in anger, wrestling with the wheels. Lucas Osklevic is in front of him, but he seems to be able to clear him. I'm going to switch now to from the weather page to the live timing page, which keeps me updated on that. And if we're on board with Felix, you can see now that dry line is becoming quite prominent. I think we'll very soon see a switch to inters or even dry tyres. The crossover point with a full load of fuel, well, race pace here, we're going to see the quickest guys getting into the 132s on full tanks in dry weather. Full wet situation, you're probably talking a race lap time of about a 147 or 145. The crossover from full wets to inters occurs at about a 1 minute 44, and Felix has written the check that shows he couldn't cash there through the Maggots-Beckett's complex, so he's out. Sander is still on, looks like he's still on for a lap. But Dylan Scrivens has actually gone purple in sector 2. I think we might stay on board with Sander as the championship leader as he tries to extract the absolute maximum out of this car. He's exiting Luffield at the moment, and even in the dry, that's a corner where you've really got to choose your moment to get full on the gas through Woodcote, and he now approaches Copse, which is a big underpants corner. In the dry, this is 290. He's backed off significantly, but made a very clean exit, getting down to about 245 kilometres an hour. That, to me, looked like a very good run through there. If he can, no, and he's off the track at Maggots. Looks like that's the most challenging part at the moment for the drivers. So he'll have no choice but to abort that lap. And we've just had Arif Roslan go fastest with a 139, and it looks like he would have done that. I think he's done that on inters. Yeah, so he's managed to achieve that on intermediate tyres. So I think what we can say now, safely say, is everybody's going to switch from full wets to inters. So Lucas Alves, who is currently in P2, has gone for another lap, and presumably the tyres will be warmer and the track will be a little bit dry. So I'd be surprised if Alves doesn't leapfrog Roslan to temporarily take over P1. We're about 7 seconds or so off dry quali pace here. I think probably 8 seconds actually. The quickest drivers will be in just over the 1 minute 30 mark in the dry. And if you're wondering where that 9 seconds goes, I mean, you could just see by riding on board how careful the drivers have got to be with their throttle inputs, how absolutely glued they've got to stay to that dry line. I mean, one wheel, this particular rear wheel, off the dry line, and you've got a mega amount of correction to do, which Alves is having to do at the moment as he fights the car onto the finish line and does not manage to improve his time, which is 7 thousandths of a second slower than his previous lap. Meanwhile, Cody Blanton has gone fastest and is going for another lap as well, so we might ride on board with Cody and see how that pans out. And I've just had a quick look at Sander Callis, and unless sometimes the simulation takes a half a minute to update with tyres, because he looks like he's still on full wets, but I'd be very surprised if he is. Well, he's just gone second fastest on full wets, if I'm getting the correct graphic. So, and Chris Raby's taken provisional pole again on inters. And Chris, I can tell you, was really praying that we don't have rain for the race, because he's not enjoying driving in the rain at all. I wonder, should we have a bit of a look at Dylan Scriven's current lap? Dylan has gone purple in sector 1 by nearly half a second, so he's on a very good lap. Just negotiating Maggots-Beckett's as we speak, and he's had no problems through there. Lucas Schmidt is in front of him, but if anything, Lucas is probably going to give him a bit of a tow and help his top speed through here. So as they approach Copse, He's understeering through there, which is to be expected, and getting down to about 190 kilometres per hour. And now as he deals with Vale and Club, and and Lucas has spun right in front of him, and now he's off circuit. So that's ended that lap, I'm afraid, because despite the contact, he's left the racing surface in the middle of that lap. So Dylan may wish to, well, unless he does, he'll probably do a faster lap later on, which will nullify that one anyway. But if that remained his fastest lap, he would probably be wise to contact the race director and withdraw that lap, just to avoid any penalties. So I'm just having a look now to see if anybody's going quickly. Cheyenne Najam is on a PB, but not a remarkable lap. Cody Blanton is stopping just before Maggots Beckett's complex, and I think I can see rain falling again. I'm going to have a quick look back at this weather map. So the system we use here is a weather plug-in which updates the weather data from a local weather station to the track, and if it starts to rain in Towcester, within about 60 seconds it starts to rain in the simulation. So it's not somebody somewhere in an office deciding how to set the weather. It's the real world, and it's as unpredictable, of course, as the weather is. So I'm just riding on board now with Christoph Schoer, who is on an outlap on Inters, and I'm just taking a bit of a look at the rain, and he's definitely got a bit of a rain squall at the moment. It's cloudy with a bit of sun poking through, but nobody is setting purple lap times at the minute. Now I know we've got a lot of very regular and loyal viewers to these Formula Sim Racing streams, but to anybody who's new, just to introduce a couple of things to you. What we run here is the simulation known as rFactor 2, which is the big daddy of the racing sims. It's the one with real world weather, the most accurately modelled vehicle physics, most accurate tyre model, and what we call real road. Rubber builds up on the line as the cars race. You get rubber on the racing line. The car is probably most similar to about a 2009 Formula One car in terms of spec. It runs the RPM limits and the power of the old 2.4 litre V8s. Maximum power 767 horsepower. The car weighs 605 kilos. Whereas last year we were running a hybrid style contemporary car with 662 horsepower, so about 100 horsepower down, and about 100 kilos heavier as well. So the cars weren't as exciting to drive. They had a bit of boost and they had DRS as well. This car is a bit more old school. It's a bit like the Formula One cars we saw before the introduction of KERS and before the introduction of DRS. So overtakes aren't easy to come by, and you've really got to work for them. The other thing that's interesting is this year we've got in the race itself, we do have fuel stops. So whereas in the previous year no refueling was allowed, so everybody started on race fuel, and over the course of the race everyone's on similar fuel. So it was very simple. If you wanted to unleash your strategy, you'd dive into the pits, put on some fresh rubber and go like hell, and you would be quicker than the people who hadn't pitted. But it's a bit more complex in a way this season, because you can decide on your fuel load for that stint, and really the pace is more dictated by fuel load than it is by tyre wear. We've got two dry tyres, the Prime and the Option. The Prime is a pretty robust tyre, so you can hit them hard for a lot of laps, and that was very much like it was in the early 2000s in Formula One, before they started using the violet crumble tyres to artificially make it more interesting. So what happens is you unleash your strategy by going low fuel at some stage in the race. But you can't do it at the end, because you need to be probably the first guy onto your final stint, unless you're planning on being super quick. So It's fairly subtle and it's beneath the surface, but there's a lot of strategy going on all the same. So we've still got a very wet track. I'm just riding on board with Cheyenne Najam, and I'm sorry if I'm getting any of these names wrong, but he's switched back to full wets. Now, if that's the correct tyre choice, I don't think we're going to see any quicker times. I think the grid is going to stick pretty much as it is if the rain gets heavier, and judging by how hard he's having to work that car to keep it pointing in the right direction, and that's incredibly hard. I think we've got a lot of surface water on the track, and big lift off there into turn 1, which is known as Abbey, and then Farm Curve, and then down into the village complex and the loop. Round Aintree, and then up the Wellington Straight, named after the famous World War II bomber, the Wellington bomber. And this is, of course, a former World War II airbase, as are many of the British circuits. So with parc fermé in place, the drivers are only able to tamper with brake balance, brake pressure, front wing, and I think steering lock. Can't even change tyre pressure. So whatever they've elected to go for in setup is what they're stuck with for the race, and that in itself makes it very, very interesting. Setup wise, the guys in searching for a fast wet setup, really you're chasing rear grip, because you just don't get the weight transfer onto the front end. So a lot of work on rear anti-roll bars, rear dampers, rear springs, and having a lot more rear wing than front wing. That, of course, can be easily changed coming into the race. So Najam has bailed out of that lap, finding he's not able to improve that. And we're just not seeing at the moment any purple sectors. The rain's come in, which is not what was predicted, and certainly not what I predicted at the top of the forecast. So just goes to show how hard these cars are to drive when it's 11 degrees and wet. So at the moment we've got 8 seconds covering the top 21, so we've got a big spread. In fact, 11.6 seconds if we look down the bottom of the grid. So we've got 5 minutes left to qualifying, and unless the weather does something in terms of drying up very quickly, it's going to be very difficult for these guys to make headway. And just a shout out too to anybody who's out there who's interested in getting involved in Formula Sim racing. This is a 17-year-old league. It's the oldest and most established and the highest level of sim racing in the world. And we have 4 levels. The top level is World Championship, which runs full race distance. ACE runs the same distance, so they both have real-world, real-time weather. Just noticing Harris there had a bit of trouble slowing his car to the pit lane speed limit, so he may have picked up may have inadvertently picked up a penalty there. ACE, you have the option to use auto clutch, but still real-world, real-time weather. Then Pro runs a 75% distance, and you can use traction control on low and ABS on low, but it is slower because there's a weight penalty attached to that. And that's designed to make the car easy to cope with, but not to allow you to win races using assists. And then the entry point to the whole Formula Sim racing journey is called AMA. And in AMA, the car is modelled more on a GP2 car. It's a bit simpler to set up. It's a bit grippier, easier to drive. And AMA is free. So if any of you are thinking about getting involved, all you need is rFactor 2, which is delivered on Steam these days. It's about 25 quid. Online racing is free as well. Most of the updates and plugins that you might want to get in your gaming future are free. So rFactor 2, as well as being the best way to race, it's probably the cheapest way to race as well. And you can get involved, dip a toe in the water and have a go at AMA and see how your pace is. And if your pace is good, you'll soon find yourself where you belong. I mean, Christopher Raby was an AMA driver last season and very quickly made it into pro, and he's now a competitive driver in the ACE series. So if you're fast where you race, and if you're keen to get involved and see what you can manage to do, come along and have a go. But if not, hope you enjoy the broadcast. So we've only got 2 minutes and 25 seconds left now of qualifying. I'm not seeing any purple sectors, or in fact any green sectors. The green sector is a PB, and the purple sector is a sessions best. So when you hear about people going purple, it means that they've just set the fastest time for that sector or that lap. It's definitely very wet into turn one there. I'm watching Heras here having to move about the track very, very gingerly. He's made it through the initial complex, the village complex, and now negotiating the loop at Aintree. And let's see if he can get a clean lap, and he's got a 1:37 on the board, which currently has him on pole. But I think from memory he did that on Inters. I'm just going to expand my view here to check his sector times now, and his first sector is 3 seconds slower than his personal best lap time. So in fact there's very little point him continuing with the lap. So it certainly adds a massive level of challenge to the drivers. I drive for Average Chronic Racing in the Pro division, and during the week the call went out, guys, we need to work on it. We've seen the weather forecast, we need to start working on wet setups. And it just adds such an amazing dimension to this simulation. And this car is hard to drive in the wet. If you can imagine a car that in the dry you can do 1:30, but then in the wet you're circulating in around about a 1:50. That's 20 seconds of sort of white knuckle concentration and wrestling with a car that just wants to leave the track at every opportunity. The qualifying time is up now, and as each driver crosses the line, they will be seeing the checkered flag at the end of their session. Now, Christoph Schoer is having a go on Inters, which I think is probably pretty brave, and by the way he's working the steering wheel, I don't think it's panning out quite as he'd expected. We'll just have a bit of a look at his, he's currently P3 in quali. We'll just have a bit of a look at his sector times. And he's left the track at Brooklands. So the weather, it just isn't in sync with what would be perfect for the drivers this time out. So Callis is seemingly having another go on the wet tyres. So I'll have a bit of a look at how he goes. See, this would not have worked out how he'd hoped. He's currently in 7th place and leading the championship. And what he doesn't want is to give his protagonists, such as Felix van Delft or Harras, who's on pole, the chance to start hauling him in. It's 25 points for a win. Points go down all the way down to 15th in ACE and Pro. But in World Championship, it mirrors the real world point system from Formula One. And points only go down to P10. I'm just going to have a look at Sander Callis's sector times. And no, miles off. He's 2 seconds off his best lap in the first sector, 3 seconds off in the second sector. So again, so he's aborted that lap and just returning to the pits, and you've got to be ever so careful in the wet. And this is one thing that's caught a lot of drivers out in the past, is that a drying line will form on the racing surface, but a drying line does not form on pit lane because there's no traffic. So when you come in from a hot run, come in from a hot lap, really giving it some out there on the track, and you come into the pits, you just do not get the sort of grip that you might want. I'm just going to take a quick photo of the qualifying result, so I've got that later to refer to. Done. So I'm on my own today, so apologies if I don't manage to cover as many things as you would like.
I'm here. David?
Oh, hi, who have we got with me?
Cameron, hello.
Oh, hi Cameron, great to have you on board.
No, I just just waiting to the end of quali because you're saying some good things, so I wanted to join you.
Oh, thank you very much. Pleased to have the backup, thank you.
No problem.
So that was an awkward quali, wasn't it? The moment came in the middle of quali to deliver the lap.
Yeah, the rain seemed to get harder, which basically just ruined the end of the quali session, unfortunately. But the times are quite spread out. I mean, even though the rain did sort of get lighter and heavier, the lap times were a lot more spread out than I thought they would be.
Yeah, no, indeed. And what surprised me a little bit is Sander Callis was out there on full wets, and the top times were posted by guys who jumped onto inters. So it'll be interesting to see how much the track dries out over the next 9 minutes while we have warm-up. Another quick look at the weather. Well, the map is very clear now. There's no rain clouds really anywhere near to speak of. So I think essentially we've got a drying track now. It's going to be another brave call as to whether you start on inters or whether you start on slicks. What would you do you think, Cameron? Because it's interesting. It's a very interesting conundrum, because if you start on the slicks, as long as you stay on the drying line, you're okay.
Yeah, the fuel's going to be the issue, I think, because you could either put on a bit more fuel, so that when you make your pit stop, you maybe fill up less, or you might go low fuel and try and get, or try and hope that the track dries up, so you can only do, say, 10 laps on that first stint before it dries up, so that you're a lot quicker on the road.
Yeah, I guess that'd go hand in hand with if you put the inters on, you'd go low fuel, knowing that you just wanted to absolutely fly on the inters, and then switch over to dry tyres with a belly full of fuel. But I was participated in an endurance race in Spa once, and it was a wet but drying track, and we were just thinking, oh God, it's going to be so wet offline, we better run on inters. But of course the track got drier and drier, and we were the only people who pitted for dry tyres, and so we were half a lap behind. So
especially if it only rains for a short amount of time, your tyre choice is very important. Because especially if it starts to rain more, for instance, and they have to go to the wet tyres, is it worth staying out on the inters a bit more in case the rain stops? Because otherwise they'll just lose 30 seconds, and when they pit again they have to lose another 30 seconds. They've lost a minute.
Indeed.
They lose a minute from
Well, I think
staying out.
we'll have a unique insight into what's going to happen, Cameron, because we've got Tank living just down the road, and so we can look at the weather map on Wonderground, but we can also just ask Tank to let us know have a look out the window and tell us what the weather's doing in Silverstone. Yeah, interestingly enough, Christopher Raby, who I think he was P3 in quali, and was absolutely praying and had all his fingers crossed that it wasn't going to be wet because he hadn't practiced in the wet. I went with Chris Raby to Silverstone for the official Formula One testing after the British Grand Prix, the week after the British Grand Prix last summer. So we sat there at Pit Straight and watched all the cars go around, and I was laughing and saying to Chris, well, that's going to give him a bit of an advantage this round.
And he won it. He won Silverstone last year, didn't he? On his first race in Pro.
Yes, he did. Well, I think his first ever race, he put it on pole, and his second ever race, he won.
Yeah, oh yeah, something like that.
Canada was one of them.
Very good.
Now, the other interesting thing is going to be when they go onto dry tyres, which tyre they go onto, because this track, Silverstone, is very hard on the option tyre. It's just so easy to overheat the tyre here, because you've got so many high-speed corners where you're just generating so much G that you can just cook the option tyre pretty quickly. But drivers are telling me that the wet tyre lasts for a hell of a long time if the track is wet. So during the warm-up period, what the drivers, of course, are doing is getting used to the car with a belly full of fuel again, because they would have been qualifying with 9 or 10 or 11 litres of fuel, and their race fuel load can be anything up to 100 litres. And of course the track is evolving incredibly quickly because the drying line is forming, so they're literally out there working out what little tweaks they need to do to front wing or brakes, and the big questions of tyres. And the couple of drivers that I've been on board with, it looks to me like it's certainly still into territory. 141s. The crossover lap time from wets to inters is about a 144, so we're definitely into territory. And one thing, of course, that the teams can do for this round is with an 11-degree ambient temperature, everybody, I think, will be running the smallest possible radiator size, running minimal radiator, because with Silverstone, there's not many low-speed sections where the engine's working very hard. You've got a lot of air passing through the radiators. And these cars, of course, they don't have fans on the radiators like conventional vehicles. They're only cooled when they're moving through the air. So certain tracks tend to work the temps very high. But Silverstone is one where temps aren't such a bad thing, but certainly tyres suffer a lot. Are you a DRS fan or a DRS foe, would you say, Cameron?
I think it works when the cars are equal, but in real life, it doesn't really work exactly. But in GP2, GP3, well, this year GP3 have got it as well. It works quite well because the cars are very similar, but also in Formula One you have a lot of engine differences and things. But in sim racing, I think it can definitely be a good thing, as long as it's balanced correctly.
Yeah, that's an interesting
You want it to
point.
be an aid rather than a push-to-pass button.
A magic button.
Yeah.
No, indeed, that's a very good point, because if you've got, if you're in a Renault when you're defending from a Mercedes-Benz and he's got DRS, it's kind of game over, isn't it, really? So from that perspective, it almost creates too much opportunity. But I just do look back on real life Formula One, and for many years there, and it was only Murray Walker, God bless him, he could make a pit stop exciting because that was the only time anybody passed anybody, because they're punching that sort of 750 horsepower hole in the air and leaving a lot of disrupted air behind them, which is what we of course refer to as dirty air, because rather than hitting a nice block of consistent air that's going to push your car into the ground, it's all been ruffled by the car in front of you, and you immediately lose a lot of front grip.
It's funny that dirty air and slipstream are called the same thing, or sorry, are called different things when they are actually the same thing.
They are indeed, aren't they?
It's just you want slipstream on the straights, but you don't want it through the corners, because that's why we call it dirty air.
Yeah, good point.
But it is the exact same process of the air, turbulent air, and lack of air.
So we're arriving at the last 35 seconds of warm-up, and the drivers will be committing to their final little tweaks to their setup, and for my money they'll be reverting as much as possible to a dry set, perhaps with just a front wing balance change. Well, they'll be running the set they did their first qualifying lap on, because once they've done that, the car's in parc fermé, which is a French word but basically means the door is closed, the room is closed, and you can't make any changes.
Also, the things that you can change are more little tweaks rather than changing the whole dynamic of a car.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the big stuff like dampers, springs, anti-roll bars that totally change the balance. You know, diff lock, which you need a lot of when it's really wet. They're all locked in. So all you can do is make a sort of a ham-fisted compensation by making big changes to wing. You know, putting a bit more front wing on to make the car a bit more on the nose.
Yeah, I wonder how many people have wet setups on.
Yeah, I wonder. You know, a lot of people might have been gambling for that dry line, and maybe that's why we've seen such a lack of consistency. We might have been seeing the people down the bottom committing more to a dry set, and they never got the dry line to exploit it on. But so we could be in for a thrilling first stint where people labouring with a wet set are being attacked by people with a dry set. Now Sander Callis is just about to complete a lap, and he's on options. He's trying out the track on wet tyres, so, and it hasn't been too bad. So I think we're going to see that guy start on slicks, on dry rubber. So we're potentially going to see a real mix here of inters, options and primes, which makes life interesting. So fuel consumption here at this track is about 3.95 litres per lap. Just a bit of trivia for you, because I love those sort of things, those numbers. And so for a 53 lap event, which is what we've got, 52 laps, pardon me. 52 lap event. That's 205 litres, which is more than the maximum fuel fill the car will take. So also all drivers are required to use a minimum of 2 compounds, unless it's a wet race, and they can just stay on wets and inters. Well, wets and inters is 2 compounds. But if the race stays wet, they're allowed to stay on wet tyres. But if we have any period of dry in the race, they're going to swap tyres anyway. But the rules are that they have to use 2 compounds. You can tell a lot by how long people are standing still in the grid, in their grid box. A 55 litre fill is about the same as a tyre change. So if you like, that's a free fuel load. But the fuel flow rate's 12 litres per second. So anything above 6 seconds stationary, or 6.5 seconds stationary, each second sitting still, that car is being loaded with another 12 litres of fuel, which is sounds like a lot, but it's only 3 laps. So I think the middle of the race, end of the first stint and the middle of the race are going to be incredibly interesting, where people start jumping on and off various tyres. And we are just about ready to go. So the drivers will form up on the grid, and they will do a formation lap, warm-up lap, then take their grid spots, and then we'll be away with round 6 of the ACE series of the Formula Sim Racing Championship. I can still see 1 or 2 people. Okay, we've got people on the grid on inters. We've got people. Actually, there's usually a visual bug here. It takes a while for it to settle out because live timing is telling me that Sergi Harras is on inters, but the graphic is showing him on wet. So that should settle out within the first 30 seconds to a minute, hopefully by the end of the formation lap. So as Sergi Harras takes them around to start their formation lap, he has the honour of pole at the British Grand Prix. Christopher Raby accompanying him on the front row. Christoph Schoer, Dylan Scrivens on row 2. Great performance by Dylan. Cody Blanton and Cheyenne Najam. And again, apologies if I'm getting any of these names wrong. It's my first week back in the booth after being away. Sander Callis, our championship leader, on row 4. And we'll be looking for some urgent action for Sanders to move to the front. Arif Roslan accompanying him on row 4. Jos Araneda, row 5. Lucas Alves making up the final 10. And then the South African driver Dewald Nell in P11. Fabian Ruth accompanying him on row 6. We've got a couple of guys who've had a bit of a problem joining. And they've ended up, they'll be needing to start from the pits. But dare I say it, this is a day where that's probably not going to be as bad as some. With all this water around and that things could get pretty hectic.
Yeah, Chatsi Pantelis actually missed grid. He's having to start from the pits.
Yes,
But
yes.
he's already at the end of the pit lane, so his engine is going to be overheating.
Right.
It's going to be another best part of a minute before green lights.
Yeah. I think in pit lane you can actually start it off, but turn the engine off and it will restart in pit lane, but because in theory your crew are there, but he mightn't know that, or he might not be prepared to risk that. Now, I'll tell you what we have got. We've certainly got a fast side and a slow side of this track because the drivers on pole, in P1, P3, P5, etc., are all on the drying line, or certainly one of their left-hand rear wheel is. But the guys on the right-hand side are on an incredibly wet track, so this is going to be a very, very dramatic start for them. So as the last couple of cars form up, we'll start to hear the buzzer go. Yep, everyone's in position. And we will start to see, under starter's orders, the man's there ready with the green flag. Lights are on. And the flag is dropped and the field is away for round 6 of the ACE Championship of Formula Sim Racing. We've had a little bit of contact already in the front. Scrivens has had an amazing start. Oh no, he's going to fight Raby into the village complex for position. I can hear a bit of contact in the background, but I'm going to stay here with the leaders. Scrivens is holding on to P1, Raby P2, Cody Blanton 3, Najam 4. Callis has moved up 2 positions already. So Callis already making a pretty bold move from P7, but of course he was on that dry side of the grid, which would not have gone astray. So I'm just going to get on board now, and I'm just at the moment sitting with Christopher Raby, seeing how he's scoping out Scrivens. They'll both be pretty conservative through cops. This is a really fast cornering normal race trim. But you can see there we've got a widening but still very much a drying line, and either side of that incredibly treacherous.
I just went back and had a look at that first sector, and there was a lot of accidents. Raby caused quite a lot of time loss for Sergi Harris, and then he got spun around as well in turn 3, so Sergi's all the way down in 17th. But
Oh,
there was
okay.
also other contact and a little bit of front wing damage for a couple of people. But
Okay.
yeah,
Thanks.
Sergi down in 17th.
Thanks for pointing that out because I missed that, of course, obviously.
And Dylan. Is leading
Rossland, by the
race
way,
with
has just
fifth.
had a bit of a spin in the final complex as he went through Vale and Club, and that's dropped him back now into P12. Van Delft has moved past him. Sorry, I interrupted you, Cameron, because there was a bit of urgent on-screen action. Go ahead.
No, I just said Dylan is actually leading the race, and didn't he start 5th, I think? That was a very
I've
good
got a
first
photo of
lap.
that, so I'm going to bring that up. So always, it's hard to find time to write them all down, so this time I photocopied it. I photographed it. Yes, Scriven started P4, so he was on the wet side of the track, so it was a pretty good start from him, in fact.
He's got a nice 2-second lead as well, so...
Yeah, that's building up
Yeah.
nicely. And Blanton has got a bit of a buffer. It's moving out to about a second now on Raby. Najam is pretty close to Raby. It makes me think that Raby might be facing a little bit of pressure soon. I know that Chris hadn't quite had the preparation that he was looking forward to. I'm riding on board now with Cheyenne Najam in 4th place, who is starting to really prowl all over the gearbox of Christopher Raby, all over him like a cheap suit, as we like to say. And I think he's looking ambitious. He's going to push Raby. Now Raby's got to try and keep cool and realise, if he's smart, and Chris is a very good racer, he'll realise that there's no way past you if you occupy the dry line. So what should be going through his mind at the moment is, I'm just going to park it on this dry line, and if you want to try something, mate, please do it on the outside, not the inside, because that would end in tears. Maguire making a big move on Alves into turn 1. Doesn't quite pull it off, but certainly showing a lot of ambition as they fly there through the first complex and now through the loop. I forgot the name of turn 1, Abbey. So Adam Maguire now on the Wellington Straight and coming into Brooklands and still looking very ambitious there, really wanting to attack Alves. It looks like Adam Maguire's got, as Toto Wolff likes to call it, the knife between his teeth. And I don't know if we're on board with Adam Maguire, but the amount of work he's putting into his steering wheel to correct tiny little oversteer moments as he gets onto throttle. As I said earlier in the stream, the exit of Luffield is a very challenging exit because it's a corner that seems to take forever. But if you are just a little bit too greedy with your right foot, you are just into a throttle oversteer spin and visiting the entrance to the old pit lane before you know it. So the rest of the field, as I look back down them, is looking relatively stable at this point. Did you say it was Christoph Schoer who was held up a bit at the start, Cameron?
No, Sergi Harris.
Oh, okay.
He got hit by Raby because Raby wheel spinned off the line, and then when Sergi got to turn 3, he was turned around by one of the ACR cars, I think, as well. So
Okay.
not a good first sector for him.
Well, Scrivens is having a fantastic opening 3 laps now, having pulled a 4-second gap on Cody Blanton, and obviously setting fastest laps as he goes along. Lucas Alves has just gone purple in sector 2, and David Ibanez has gone purple in sector 3, which we're going to see a lot of that happening because, as well as the cars getting a little bit lighter on fuel, the track is going to get faster and faster, and we're going to see these guys going from a current best lap of 1 minute 37. We're going to get down to probably 5 seconds quicker than that as this track evolves.
We need to keep an eye on Callas, P5. He is on the option tyres. He is the only person in the top 15 that is on the option tyres. So
Good call.
He is hoping that he's going to dry out very quickly, and he is all over the back of Cheyenne. He was about a second behind this time last lap, so he's definitely a lot quicker.
Fantastic pickup. Yeah, he's going to make a move, although he's now on the wet part of the track, and this would be an absolute teeth-clenched moment. He's taken a conservative approach and lives to fight another day, but Najam is going to be under so much pressure from Callas at the moment. And as the drying line, it's just that it only needs to get probably 50% wider, and Callas is going to be able to launch a move. And he's also, well, you'd think he was perhaps going to drop a pit stop, but in reality, of course, he's on the options. And for my money, if you can get more than 13 laps out of these options in race conditions, you're a genius. Although maybe with a bit of water around and having to drive a little bit more gingerly, it'll keep the temps down and you'll get more out of them. But certainly 13 to 15 laps he will need to pit. But he'll have clear air if people in front of him pit on the inters. Callas will have clear air and be able to really put the hammer down and do something special during that first pit stop cycle. So he's having a really, really good look at Najam now as they approach Copse, and he looks like well, that was interesting. He all but owned a bit of the dry line there in the entry into Copse. That was very marginal. But Najam held his position and held his line, and Sander wisely backed out of it. And Scrivens, meanwhile, has bolted. It's a 6-second lead now. But I agree with you 100%, Cameron. The action at the moment is Callas on that option tyre, starting to attack the intermediate tyre runners. Shower in P15 is the only other guy I can see here on the list who started on dry tyres. Maguire has pitted, so he's decided that the crossover time has arrived. Will he gamble? We're watching Adam Maguire in the pits. Will he gamble for primes? I've got a feeling he might. Yes, he has. So he's going to go long, which will give him the chance to potentially jump. Oh, Rosland's come out on options. Now, that's interesting. That's interesting. I like Maguire's move because Maguire can now get out there and do 20 laps. More than 20 laps.
Yeah, this is where the strategy becomes very important.
Absolutely.
Because you now have to think... Because obviously if it was a dry race, they would have set numbers in their head of how far the laps could go, but now they're sort of 5 laps into the race, it sort of alters the numbers on laps quite a bit.
Callas in a big attack on Chris Raby at the moment. Raby lost the position to Najam, and I think he might have had a problem exiting Luffield. Callas is on his gearbox as well, and the inter runners are soon going to find these tyres. See, the drying line is nearly 2 cars wide now. The intermediate runners are going to find themselves just that little bit compromised soon as the grip really starts to come in on the dry tyres. Yes, and Raby has elected to pit as well. So pit lane is getting very, very busy at the moment as drivers move in and make their choices, and they're going to have to be so careful to not score a penalty crossing that the pit limiter line, because the whole of pit lane is wet and they've got to start to slow down so much quicker. Raby's gone to options. Interesting, he wants to do some quick laps. Be interesting to see which of these strategies pan out. Scrivens is actually coming up onto his first lap driver now, Vasilev. Todor Vasilev. So Scrivens has cleared him. Gap now 7 seconds. I'm interested to see what Scrivens' lap times are now compared to...
Rosland's in again. Yeah, Rosland's race has just gone quite bad. He's just coming again, and I don't know what he's doing. I think he might have sped in the pit lane, and he's coming into service penalty.
Well, you know, I think I spotted him do that because he had a lock-up, and he was one of the first to pit. And I think he was just caught out by the amount of water on the track on the pit entry. which is just so easy to do. Callis has gone purple in sector 1 by a bit over half a second. So Callis has got he's got clear air now in front of him. He hasn't got a really wide line, so he can't really go ballistic on these. I can hear a lot of action, a lot of damage then. But we've got several drivers in the pits, all switching off their inters. Schmidt goes for options. Sadly is out as well. So Callis is now from P7 on the grid, having taken the choice to start on options. 7 laps into the race, or on the 8th lap of the race now, he's in P2 and 9 seconds behind Scrivens. Scrivens will no doubt pit quite soon, like a lot of drivers have, because Callis is 1 second quicker than him. So every lap he stays out now, he's basically handing a second over to Sander Callis. What's Felix van Delft doing? He's our number 2 driver in the standings. Van Delft has gone on to primes, so I think he's going to have his moment in the sun in probably, well, he's 42 seconds back. The pit lane delta here is surprisingly short. It's under 20 seconds. Oh, Cody Blanton is out with damage. Oh, Van Delft has had a big off out at Copse, run wide at Copse. Because, of course, the primes are a lot harder to bring in on a drying track. Even on a perfectly dry track, the primes take 2 or 3 or 4 laps to really start to grip. It's the rubber's harder. In school days, if you ever had those erasers where one end is soft and the other end is hard, well, the prime is the harder end, and it's just not grippy until they really start to get warm, and then they're fantastic. But coming out on a partly damp track on the primes is a lot harder to do. Callis has now gone 2 seconds quicker than Scrivens' last lap, which has brought the gap down by a similar amount, brought it down by 2 seconds. So Scrivens is probably talking to his engineer at the moment saying, buddy, what the hell should I do? Do I pit now? And 44 laps to go. He's 2 prime stints from home, really, if he wants to run primes. So he can just do 2 more stops. And for my money, Callis has to do 2 more stops as well. So I think Scrivens, when he pits, and he's pitting now on board with Scrivens, let's see if he can slow down in time for that pit limiter line. And he's been very careful, and he got it right on the money. That was a very good pit entry on a wet track. He's made the call to come in and put on dry tyres, and let's see if he's going to play the long game or the short game. We'll see if the red sidewall options go on. Yes, they do. He wants to go fast. So Scrivens will exit on the option tyres, and let's see where he ends up. Van de Vliet is pitting from P4, so he hasn't got to worry about him. Harras is through, and Harras is now 12 seconds behind Sander Callis. But that's going to be a very temporary phenomenon, because Harris is on inters and looking like he's really struggling with them. They look like they're going off. So Scrivens is in a realistic P2 when the next when Harris's stop washes out. The Harris is lapping in a 1:37.4. So Callis is now down to a 1:33. So let's see what Scrivens can do. He's got a 16-second deficit for Callis. They've both got, by my accounting, I think they're both going to have to stop twice again, because Scrivens is going to need to stop around about lap 22. I don't think he can do 30 laps on primes. I think they're both 2 stops away from the end, actually. So Scrivens is going to have to really turn on some form. Van Delft. Let's look at Van Delft's lap times and see how he's getting on with these primes. And yeah, nothing stunning yet. Yeah, I know he had a big mistake on the previous lap, so I won't count that one, but his best is a 136.852. Oh, pardon me, I'm looking at the wrong stint. Yeah, his last lap was a 136.852, so he's starting to get the primes working. Chatsapanslis is heading back into the pit lane, and so is Sergi Harras, as predicted, has had to pit as well, get off those inters. Same with De Angelis. So they've run between 8 and 10 laps on the inters. Now our other option runner at the beginning was I'm just trying to remember. We had another guy who started this race on options, but my memory's not that good, I'm afraid. Oh, I can tell by clicking on them all.
Christoph.
Ah, Christoph. Okay.
He DNF'd. Something I just noticed. Sergi is now in P5. He was P17.
Well, that's pretty remarkable going.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So he had a fantastic stint on the inters. So well done to him.
And Jos is in 3rd on the inters, so that would put Sergi up to 4th as well, because Jos must be pitting very soon.
He's
stays out
he's
again.
going for another lap. Wow.
He must have fuel and wants to burn it before making a pit stop.
He's doing 137, so every lap out there is costing him a couple of seconds, and he can get 3 laps worth of fuel in 1 second. So I'd be saying forget the fuel strategy for now, mate, and just get on some faster tyres. Particularly, you know, he's in a good position. He'd come out of the pits on fresh rubber and still be in the top 9. On my maths would say he'd come out in front of DeWald Nell. However, another lap and he won't be, because Nell is 24 seconds behind him. One more lap and it's going to be 20 seconds. Pit lane delta is just about 19 here, which is, you'd think it would be more, but the thing is you miss about 5 corners, and I know that turn 1, turn 2 are flat out, but you miss that whole final complex, and it's a pretty fast pit entry, so it's one of the shorter pit lane deltas that we come across. So if in doubt, you can stop. And there's still a lot of laps left to make a good tyre choice pay back dividends to you. You know, we've got 41 laps remaining to, you know, make the right tyre choice work for you. I'm sure Jos, is that how you say it? Jos Araneda? I'm sure he's got to pit this time round for sure.
Callas is almost 3 seconds lap quicker than Dylan. So he is definitely pushing, so I think he's definitely got 2 stops to make.
Yeah.
Dylan might be conserving. He's going a bit slower, or he's heavy on fuel because he's going a bit slower.
You know, the other thing
Maybe
that might have happened is that Sander, who did not qualify well, he might have said, what the heck, I'm gambling on a really good dry setup. I'm not going to compromise the car and make it too understeery for wet. Araneda is hitting now, and he's gone onto options as well. And he is coming out. Will he come out in front of Nell? He is coming out in front of Nell, and by a good margin. So I must have had those maths a bit wrong, or he had a very, very good pit stop. So he won P2. Oh, Dylan Scrivens has just had a big off exiting Cops. Oh, it could have nearly ended very nastily. But Callis and Scrivens both on options. Adam Maguire has put himself in a very good position, because Maguire, you'll recall, I was impressed with his choice of going for primes at that early pit stop. Maguire is on primes. He's in 3rd place. Okay, he's 36 seconds back, but he's going to do a lot of laps. I can hear some crashing noises. I'm looking for some lap time changes here. Alves has got some damage maybe. Yeah, 17. Lucas Alves seems to have had a problem. Not quite sure what he's doing. He's driving on the wet part of the track. I think he must be recovering to the pits and allowing other cars to pass him by. Something's happened there. But look at this. Callis has built up a 30-second lead here, just by surviving on the drying line on these options. When's his lap time going to start to erode? That's what I want to know, because these options, certainly when I tested them, and I'm not nearly as good a driver as Sander, when I tested them, they were like a violet crumble. They just melted. But he's running a good lap, a 1:32.8. There's nothing shabby about that lap time. And that's as quick as he's gone. So his last two laps have been within a couple of thousandths of each other, a 1:32.880 and a 1:32.888. So Sander is still flying on these options. And I tell you what, I wouldn't bet on anyone else at the moment with this performance. I'm gonna jump on board with Dylan Scrivens for a moment, just to see if I can detect a hint of understeer on this car, which would indicate a setup that really prioritised the wet weather. And you know what, I'm tempted to say that I think he's got a bit of an understeery car. Now, he's got a couple of options. If some more people leaving the pits now, as Scrivens rounds turn 1, turn 2. His only real options are, while in the car, he can move his brake bias rearwards, which will put a bit more heat into the rear tyres and make them a bit more slidey. Keep the front tyres a bit cooler and let them have a bit more grip. Also reduce wear at the front, but you can just add a click or two of wing at the pit stop. Because, yeah, Dylan's got an understeering car. He's just turning that wheel in to a huge extent to get that nose turning in. So what, of course, happens then is the front tyres get hotter and hotter, wear more and more understeer, more steered angle, more wear. So it's just a diminishing cycle of lost lap time. And so that would be my guess. Scrivens is on a wet weather setup, and in the wet you've really got to have a more understeery car. Callis has gone for a dry setup, and the car is really just coming to him, and this would be a wonderful moment for Callis. His car's flying. He's about to lap another driver here. Can't quite make out the name of that driver that he's lapped. So Scrivens is still in a good position. He's P2. He's on the correct tyre. He's 5 seconds ahead of Adam Maguire, but I reckon Adam Maguire at the moment is in a position to do something pretty good here. I think Adam has a very good chance to get onto the second step of the podium, because his primes are just coming to him now. He would have been on them for 8 laps or so. No, he's had 10 laps now on the prime. He's got them working nicely. He's getting, his best lap time was a 1:33.9. So he's certainly got them working well, but the beauty of the prime is he can just keep going and certainly do double the laps that he can do of the, although he's just had a big hairy moment there exiting Copse. And this is the thing with the prime, if you get off that drying line and put any of the tyre onto the wet part of the track, it's just going to be a very emotional moment. But Maguire's looking good. He's only 5 seconds to the rear of Scrivens and doing 1:30, let's call it 1:34s. Scrivens is doing 1:36s. So in fact, Maguire is closing the gap on Dylan Scrivens, and Dylan will need to pit a lot sooner. Just having a little bit of a look at Scrivens' current stint. He's done 7 laps on the options, and yeah, he's really talking a mid 135 to a low 136. So the option isn't doing amazing things for him, and they're not going to last as long as Adams either. So Lucas Schmidt and Sergei Heras looks to be the closest on-track battle, and Schmidt is certainly getting onto his gearbox. Schmidt is doing mid 134s. Heras is doing high 134s on average. So I think we might have a bit. Oh, Sander Callis pitting, the leader pitting to get off those options. And you know what? He's in a position. He may as well run the prime. Yeah, he's put the primes on to run long. And exiting the pits, he will exit back in first place, because he had 40 seconds in hand, and the pit stop delta here, as I mentioned, is somewhere between 19 and 20 seconds. So Callis will exit on primes, back into the lead, and what a fantastic feeling. You know, he's at this moment got every right to start feeling pretty good about the afternoon, because he's now got on a set of tyres that he's going to do a minimum of 20 laps on, and he is well in advance of the other people.
Yeah, Dylan made a mistake on the in lap as well. He went sort of over the grass in
okay.
So he lost another, I don't know, 5 seconds maybe.
Maguire, by the
Maguire's
way,
behind
is
him.
on Scrivens' gearbox now, and remembering that Maguire, despite the fact he's on the primes, has been doing consistently slightly faster lap times. But of course, he's got to find a dry bit of track to pass him on, because the prime, while acceptable on this drying line, will be deadly anywhere near the wet line. So Scrivens has got to keep his cool and just own that dry bit of track and let Adam earn the pass. And he's done exactly that. He gave Adam the choice then of throwing the car on the wet line and making a move up the inside of Copse on dry tyres on a wet track, and Adam was too wise for that. Somebody rejoining here on the exit of Copse. Yes, fortunately they did it carefully. That was Vaslev. He got out of the way, and Maguire's made a big move now out of Chapel and into Stowe, and he's got the deal done. He's passed Scrivens. He just had much more pace as he exited Maggots and Beckett's and exited Chapel. Got the run on him, and there was just too much track there for Scrivens to park on it and prevent the pass. So fantastic drive there from Adam Maguire, who is only 17 seconds behind Sander. Another lap car of Ibanez, I think, making room for the guys, doing the right thing. And it's tricky when you're being lapped and it's on a drying line, because you've got to sort of find a spot which is not too turny, because it's all wet. You're leaving the dry part for the guys that are lapping you. So Maguire's put himself in a very good position here. I'll be intrigued to see what he can do lap time wise, and what Sander Callis can do lap time wise, who's also on the primes. But that was a lovely bit of strategic work from Maguire. See, when Maguire pitted, he pitted from 18th place. Sorry, 10th place. Pitted from 10th, returned in 18th, but it was just such a lovely strategy call. And now, where is he? P2. Love that sort of action. Jos Araneda is pitting as well. He's getting off, he's gotten off those options and onto a set of primes. Didn't run them for very long, those options. Just having a quick little look now. Wow, that was a 5-lap stint on the options. What's that about? Don't understand that. 5 laps on the options and now onto primes. I mean, the Prime's his preferred race tyre, perhaps could have fitted that at the very beginning. But anyway, who am I to say? These guys are ace drivers and I'm a struggling pro driver. We're just calling the strategy as I see it.
If it was 5 laps, he probably had a drive-through or a stop-go for speeding in the pits, because you have to serve that within 5 laps. So maybe he waited.
Ah, yes, good call. Yep, that makes perfect sense. So after 18 laps now, we still have 16 runners here in this ACE Championship race. Scrivens is not getting dropped embarrassingly by Maguire. He's staying in fairly close proximity, but he's going to have to pit. My money says he's going to have to pit before Maguire, which is going to drop him back. But I guess what he wants to try to do and needs to try to do is get himself a nice gap to the cars behind him. So Lucas Schmidt's kind of worked his way into a decent position. He was 10th at the start, and first 9 laps held that position. But he's worked himself now into 5th place. So Schmidt's doing good things. Jared van der Weed started 9th, got as low as 12th, and has been gradually working his way up. So he's having a pretty good afternoon as well. So it's nice to qualify well, but it's lovely moving forward in a race. So Sander Callis will have no need to pit for some 20 or so laps. Maguire is actually holding him. The gap to Maguire was 17 seconds and some change. It's now 16 seconds and some change. So Adam is performing very, very well in the Ghost Speed car. There's 32 laps remaining, 16 seconds gap. They're on similar strategies, but I think Sander's got the edge in terms of having a fresher set of primes. So, but you never know what's going to happen. Now, most of these cars, of course, as they pit, are taking on more fuel. So we've not seen any purple lap times for a while. We haven't seen any fastest laps. And in fact, Callis, for example, who did own the fastest lap of the race with a 1:32.8, he's now lapping in his last lap was a 1:34.3. So he's about 1.5 seconds slower. And that's down to, you've got a fuel delta and you've also got the prime tyre delta, or the difference between the prime tyre and the option tyre on pure pace. But also when you're running the prime, you'll put a decent weight of fuel in the car. You might have up to 80 litres in the car. So that's why he's not going as quick as he was before. In fact, Maguire is going 1.1 seconds quicker per lap currently than the race leader, Callis. So Maguire is in a groove. He's found his rhythm, and he is putting in some damn good work here. I'm just going to have a look at some of his recent lap times. Yeah, it's been metronomic. I'm looking back here. We've got a 1:34.1, 1:34.7, 1:34.1, 1:33.5, 1:33.1. So his car, what that says to me is his car is getting lighter. He has had those tyres on for some time, in fact, and those lap times might be coming here. He's 16 laps into his stint. I'd be surprised if he's got more than 5 laps worth of fuel left in the car, which is about 20 litres. And so he's having his moment in the sun here, where on relatively strong tyres, he's on low fuel and able to really put in some very, very competitive laps. So at least have Callis looking at the gap, which would be a nice feeling. So Yeah, so if I was a betting man, I'd say by lap 27, Adam will be back in. And from there, potentially, and he's just coming up on a lap car now, Maguire, who George Chatsapansalis is hopefully going to do the right thing and move out of the way, and eventually manage to. So this is Adam probably with his moment of the greatest relative pace to the leader. And he's certainly doing everything he can. Adam has just gone purple on primes with a 1:32.813, which is 7,000th of a second faster than Sander Callis' previous best lap time. What you've got to remember, of course, we've got a drying track, and we've got a track that's getting rubber added to it every lap. So Adam is flying now, 14.5 seconds to the rear of Sander Callis, and really, really working that car beautifully. He's got no, Schmidt is pitting off those options. So let's have a look. Yeah, well, that was a pretty good stint. He ran a 15-lap stint on the options, and of course helped a little bit by the fact he put them on pretty early. He's gone options again, so he's liking the look of those, which means he'll definitely have another stop, because he might get another 15 laps out of this next set. But he's got a bit of breathing space, because Van der Weide is only now entering pit straight. Schmidt is entering the complex at the first sector, the village complex, village loop, Aintree. So he's still got good breathing space. De Wolde Nel having a fairly quiet race, but he's entering the pits now from a solid P7. Which will allow Ernesto De Angelis to pass him. And what tyres is Nell going for? Nell's going for options again, and did seem to take on a fair bit of fuel, unless it's my imagination.
Yeah, these people taking the options, they've got to be taking another pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can't do 30 laps on them. No way in the world. No way in the world. I don't think on a dry track where you're starting to really push and get big temps up.
Sergi just had a spin, going through the S's. Actually, he was come up to a back marker, but I don't think he was quite in a dirty air yet, and he spun. So he's now back behind Dylan after getting past a couple of laps ago. He lost about 6 or 7 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Quite a costly spin for him.
Well, Scrivens is still hanging on to P3. Dylan Scrivens now coming up on the rear of a lapped car, Chatsapansalis, who hopefully will make life easy as he passes. Entering Brooklands and Luffield is a very tricky place to have to sort of pass somebody, and it's always nice if they can lift on the Wellington Straight and keep life very, very simple, because it's a demanding sector, and there aren't many choices of where you might want to put the car, but he's been allowed through there, and minimum disruption to his race. Yeah, Maguire holding steady now at about 14.5 seconds off Callis. And Callis looks like he's responded. Callis has just done a fastest sector 1. But Maguire's still he's in the mid 133s now. He got his best lap was a 132.8. And he's been in mid to low 133s. He's back up to mid 133s. So it's not fuel load. So certainly tyres are now starting to need just a little bit more TLC from Adam. And it's a funny thing with the primes, when they start to go, just the amount of steered angle you can put in and the amount of grip that you can rely on, it just drops below a certain threshold, and you've really got to start to baby them. Whereas the options, you can push the options and they'll do the job, but you just overheat them and wear the hell out of them. But when the primes get to that point, you just can't push them. You've got to drive within them. But Adam's certainly having a very good race, 14.8 seconds. Yeah, he's dropped a tiny bit back now with Callis now on... Callis is now, the pendulum has swung and Callis is now doing sub 133s. His last time round was a 132.9 versus a 133.6. So we're now about 0.7 of a second lap time difference to the benefit of Callis. And yes, in fact, Adam is at his tyres and Adam is now entering the pits, getting the car down to the correct speed. And what is Adam going to put on this time? He might decide to throw the dice and go for options. He doesn't have to. Yeah, no primes again. So Scrivens and Heras both through. But Maguire can see, well, just as soon as he turns onto the Wellington straight, he might just be able to see the gearbox of Heras's car, who is entering Brooklands. And Scrivens is holding that gap to Sergei Heras. Now Schmidt is up in P5. He's been in P5 for a while, but I think he's holding about the same gap to the drivers in front of him, 44 seconds off the lead. And then he's got a lot of breathing space back to DeAngelis, a minute 10 back from the leader, so a good 35 seconds back behind him. So the leader, Sander Callis, has now commenced lap 28 of 52. And now with a 26-second buffer to Dylan. And Dylan has done 18 laps on these options. So Dylan's got to dive in to the pits very soon. And he's going to hand that position certainly back to Adam. What about Sergei Heras? Yeah, both Heras and Scrivens are both going to need to pit pretty darn soon, I think. The lap times have gone off a bit, so I think we'll see Heras pit this time round. Scrivens, yeah, likewise, his lap times have eroded a bit, unless he had a problem the last time round. So there's a good chance we're going to see Scrivens and Heras pit from P2 and P3, which will return Adam Maguire to his rightful place there in second place. Now Maguire's gap, the timing I'm seeing in game, yeah, I'm seeing a gap of 40 seconds, which tells me he didn't have a fantastic pit stop, because he was 14 seconds arrears going in, and which means he should have come out about 35, 36 seconds, unless he took a really big load of fuel. Well, I guess he will be going to the end. Of course he'll be going to the end. So he would have had to take on board 25, and he would have had to take 100 litres of fuel on board. So that's a long stop. That's an extra 4-second stop. So that explains that. So Callis making very consistent lap times in the lead here. With I'm just looking back over his recent laps with a 133.6, 134.2, 134.2, 134 flat, 133.2. So he's in a groove. He's not having to fight the car too much. He's not having to take big risks and wring the car's neck. Ernesto De Angelis just pitting now, going from primes to options, which is an interesting choice at this stage of the race with 24 laps to go. But he just must feel that he's faster on the option, which I can totally understand. So Callis coming up now against more lap traffic, and in fact it's P9, it's Ernesto De Angelis, who has only just recently pitted. Now Scrivens is pitting right on, he's following the script, and Scrivens is coming into pit after I think about an 18 lap stint on those options, so that was a pretty big effort. And I'd have thought, yeah, he'll go for primes now. He's had primes fitted to the car, and he will easily run home now on these with 23 laps remaining, especially considering he got a lot of laps out of his options. I just hope he's maybe done a slight front wing adjustment to, yeah, he did 20 laps on those option tyres, so wow, that's impressive. So he might have done a slight front wing adjustment just to help a little bit with understeer. Although you've got to be very careful if you add a clicker front wing onto primes, the front end of the car starts to write checks that the rear end can't cash. So you've got to be very, very careful. So now Dylan Scrivens again coming up onto the rear of lap traffic in the form of George Chatsipantelis, and hopefully George will make life easy for him as he passes. So I'm just riding on board now with Dylan Scrivens actually, because he's got to bring these primes in, and it's a bit of a different kettle of fish to the options. The options, after about half a lap, they've already come to you. The grip balance is there and the tyre temp's there. Heras now pitting, so he's going to get off those very, very well-worn options, which he's done a good job on those. His final lap was a 1:33.7, or his previous lap was a 1:33.7, so he did pretty well on those options, it must be said. And what's he going to do? He's going for another set of options, which interesting choice. I guess he's got 22 laps to go.
He just did 20 laps on the options.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess
gambling.
He's got the feeling that because of course as the rubber builds up on the track, the tyre starts to not develop as much temp. It's not sliding as much, and so you do get greater endurance out of them. Not as noticeable as last year, Cameron, because last year, of course, the fuel load was continually depleting over the race. So you'd start with 100 litres, and in your final stint, you've got a much lower fuel load, so you could always rely on having a few more laps out of your tyres.
Yeah, last year was all about the tyres.
Yeah.
This year's mostly about the fuel, so you have to get your full fuel calculations spot on.
Yeah.
And try and work your tyre strategy around that.
100%. So Heras is already pushing hard on these freshly fitted options, and it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with Scrivens, because the two of them were sort of duking it out fairly evenly on pace. And I think you mentioned Sergei had a bit of a spin which handed the place back to Scrivens, and he's just now passing lap traffic again. So these guys actually are in a reasonably tight group, because you've got the gap between Maguire in second place and Heras in fifth place is only 12 seconds. So we've got four guys occupying about less than half a sector, and we've got 21 laps to go. So it's game on for P2 really. Although I think it would be pretty risky to bet on anyone other than Adam Maguire managing to take P2. Although Lucas Schmidt is on the options, and he's getting very, very close to Adam Maguire now. Schmidt's been running 134, mid 134s to high 133s. Maguire is in the mid to high 134s. So Schmidt at this moment in time has got the better natural pace than Maguire, but of course Schmidt is on a tyre that is not going to last as long as Adam. So let's see how long Schmidt's been on these tyres for. Okay, he's 8 laps into this option stint. So really, it must be said that the option tyre now should be in a lovely working window. He's not got a lot of wear on, not got too much temp on, and he's on a quicker tyre than Maguire. So if Schmidt is ever going to get past Maguire, these next 2-3 laps are the perfect time to do it. And let's see what can be done. Of course, we have no DRS, no drag reduction system in this car this year. So it's all got to be done the old-fashioned way. And these cars are pretty grippy. Fair bit of downforce. So you've got that draft, that dirty air that Cameron and I discussed earlier. But you've also got pretty short braking zones and pretty high cornering speed. So it is not easy to pull a pass out of these cars.
Yeah, the dirty air is quite an effect in this car. You really have to be careful behind the car, because you can easily just understeer wide.
Yep.
So you sort of have to choose your lap correctly, because for instance, at this track, coming through the S's, you're going to need to keep as close as you can. And one lap you might just have to go all out to push through those S's to get within the slipstream. Otherwise you won't have enough slipstream coming onto the hangar straight.
Schmidt's had a pretty good exit, and in fact we've got lap traffic coming up now, and this might be the moment he can seize upon, because it'll depend on how well Adam Maguire clears Vasilev, and that challenge might provide an opportunity to Schmidt. So it's game on now as they enter the pit straight. Vasilev does a very good move across to the left there and gets out of the way. That's very good driving. Being lapped is a skill all of its own, and I'm pretty good at it, I must admit. But Schmidt is now getting pretty close to Maguire. If he gets, Schmidt needs just a really good exit here out of the village complex, out of the loop, and on the hangar straight, and use the benefit of the dirty air. How's he going RPM wise? Yeah, he's getting up to 17,600 RPM, so he's still got some RPM in hand.
Maguire seems to have quite good top speed, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think he got to 306 on that straight, obviously just on his own, so Schmidt is going to have to be quite a bit faster to overtake. Schmidt
had a very nice exit from Luffield then. Big commitment through Copse. I can almost feel the temp coming off that outside left front tyre as he goes through Copse. And what he's got to do now is, as you said, just try to just extract that exit from Beckett's complex as they pass Chapel and onto the hangar straight. But Maguire has got a quick car. 310 kph. So Maguire's car is quick. And it'd be very interesting to be inside the head of Adam Maguire at the moment, because he's in a very strong position in this race. Schmidt's attacking him, but in fact Adam could just really say to himself, well, look, I'm just gonna keep doing my thing here. If Schmidt gets by, fantastic, but Schmidt's got to stop again. I don't. So in fact it's very exciting on track action, but in effect Schmidt is really in a unique position as far as his race this afternoon goes, in that he's super quick at the moment.
Yeah, Schmidt is over pushing a little bit. He is sliding all four wheels in some corners.
Yeah, you can see
this is race critical for him, really.
You can see the amount of steered angle he's putting into those options, and they're going to start to overheat and protest. But you know what? He might as well. He might as well enjoy himself, because he's going to have to pit anyway. So he may as well have a damn good battle. See what he can do with Maguire. The cars always amaze me looking at them through the Maggots-Beckett's complex, just the amount of G and the direction changes. It's a fantastic place to watch a Formula One car. So he's getting closer again. But yeah, you can just see him have the front end washing out. He's having to steer such angles. So it's almost a case of whether he can force an error out of Adam Maguire. And Adam Maguire's kind of holding all the cards at the moment. He's on the slower tyre. He's got track position. And it's going to take a big move. Now we've got another lapped car coming up here. Van der Weed. They passed that DO and this car ahead's smoking as well. That car's going to have a terminal barbecue soon, which surprises me a bit because we've got about 11 degrees ambient.
Jared just had a stop-go penalty.
Ah, okay. So
he was sat in the pits for quite a while.
Right, okay, thanks. Good call. Good spot. Because it's only 12 degrees. But that is the point on the track where engines tend to let go here because you're going through that village complex and the loop. You're using a lot of revs, but there's not much air passing over the radiator. So Lucas again attacking the rear of Maguire. Can he do anything? Is that car in front going to compromise Maguire and give him the moment, give him the opportunity? He pushes hard, but he's had to make a couple of little micro corrections coming out of the Beckett's end of the Maggots-Beckett's S's complex. That car is still smoking like crazy. I think that car is about to barbecue itself. Jared Van der Weed. Now the other wild card is of course Scrivens. He's only 11 seconds behind Schmidt now at 1 minute. Harras has not passed him. So Scrivens has got these primes working nicely. He's punching out mid 134s on average. And he will, at this rate, he will pass Lucas Schmidt when Schmidt pits and put himself back into P3. Yeah, he's struggling now to get that extra life out of those options. It's a bit of a passing thing. It's a bit like eating an ice cream at the beach in the sun. You know, it's lovely, but then pretty soon things start to melt. And if you're attacking somebody and sitting in their dirty air, you just bring that on even faster. But Lucas has certainly harried Maguire. He certainly made his presence very, very much felt. But Maguire has, to his credit, Maguire has just kept his cool and kept doing the job. So as they approach Hangar Straight again, I'm just looking at the top speed from... Yeah, Schmidt got up to 317 kph there with the toe, obviously.
Yeah, banging off the limiter though, so he needs to be a lot closer. So if that's his top speed, he needs to be a bit closer than that. So he's surely going to be pitting very soon. Let's have a look. Yeah, he's done 13 laps on this set, and we've only got 15 laps to go, or 14 laps to go. So he will be coming in very soon.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, he'll grab another set of options. And maybe we'll have some entertainment because he'll come out 51. Yeah, he's going to come out just to the rear of Harras, maybe 5 seconds to the rear of Harras.
Callas pit? Oh yeah, he was doing it. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, because...
I thought he was going to the end. That's why he's got such a big lead.
Harras is 14 seconds behind him, and the pit stop's 19. So, yeah, he's going to come out 5 seconds behind Harras. Harras, of course, is on options too. Now, is he going to stop again?
He pit with 22 laps to go, so he's probably just pushing
you're right.
it.
He's not. He'd done 20 laps, and we figured he's going to do 22 on this last set of options.
Yeah.
Well, Schmidt might be able to attack him on a fresh set.
Possibly, because obviously Sergi is going to be time managing a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, the fronts have given up for Lucas.
Yeah, it's been pushing quite hard, and even being in the dirty air, you sort of overheat the fronts even more, so doubly bad for him.
Yeah, indeed. It just, it's a funny old thing. It was Nigel Mansell used to maintain that, you know, if you're attacking another driver, when you've happened upon another car and you've caught another car, the moment to seize, you've got to seize the moment as soon as you get there. You can't follow them around. And for very technical reasons as well, probably as other psychological reasons, you need to attack early. Now, did something happen to Callis last time round? Because the gap has gone from 50 odd seconds to 29 seconds.
Yeah, I said, yeah, he pitted.
Oh.
Yeah, I got confused because I thought he was going to the end.
Yeah, so did
but
I.
actually, no, he's done 2 stops now. But yeah, he's got a massive lead. Still
He's got the luxury now of perhaps he wants to set fastest lap with very low fuel on these options. Then why not if you're that far ahead?
Yeah, how has he got such a big lead though? Because he's got a 30-second gap,
Yeah.
and there's sort of another 15 seconds covering 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
And then basically everyone else is lapped.
Yeah.
So he has had awesome pace. This is the pace that he has showed earlier on in the season, but not so much in the last few races.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that he's had, really, I think the big differentiator was his strategy. Schmidt now pitting.
Yeah, Schmidt pits.
Yeah, as we sort of saw, those fronts had really given of their best.
Yeah, option
Staying on options. But yeah, if we recall, Callis was one of only 2 drivers to start on dry weather tyres. And when everybody on the Inters started pitting, well, he started going very fast on his dry weather tyres. But as all the people pitted on Inters, he had clear air and just started really giving us some. He started in 7th place, Sander Callis, was 5th after lap 1, but then, which was down to driving. But then it was down to strategy because he had the dry tyres on, didn't need to change, ran them until he needed to pit. And I'll just remind myself, refresh my memory on how long he went. Yeah, so he went 17 laps on the options and put himself in a fantastic position, and then pitted for primes. So. And back out on the options now for a very enjoyable run home. So it was a masterclass of driving and strategy from Sander Callis. So his team bosses at Netrex Grand Prix are going to be very, very impressed. But I think Adam Maguire too has got a lot to be pleased with. I mean, I don't want to do the old commentator's curse, but I'm on board with Sander Callis, and I think George Chatsapanslis is going to figure again in a lapping manoeuvre. I hope it's a nice clean one. But I think Adam Maguire has got a lot to be pleased with, because he made that call when he came off the Inters. He jumped straight onto primes and paid. It was hard going for the first few laps, maybe for the first 10 laps, but that just put him in such a fantastic strategic box that he only had to stop one more time. And all the people who went for options had put themselves into a situation of having to stop twice. So I think Adams played a fantastic strategy. He started on Inters, but really made the best choice. And you might recall, it impressed me at the time that he went for the primes and went long. And it's so far working out brilliantly for him. Now, Lucas Schmidt, by the way, is only 2.5 seconds behind Heras on those fresh options. So Lucas might have another nice battle to fight. And Heras himself is only a second behind Scrivens. So these three are closing up nicely. And there's only one more spot on the podium, and there's 3 blokes, I think, covet that spot. So Schmidt's got a clear Van der Weide, who's a lapped car. He firstly wanted to take a little bit of a drag from him, a little bit of a tow to get a nice top speed, and he gets 306k, which is 306, 308 is what most of them are doing without the benefit of a toe. And we talk a lot in Formula Sim racing about top speed, because it's something we can see. We can see what the top speed is, and we can see when they pit. But and the casual viewer might say, well, why don't they just, you know, give their car a higher top speed? But of course, the trade-off is to get a good lap time. You need cornering grip. You need downforce. You need the car to be fast everywhere, not just on the straight. So you could trim your car out to be the fastest car on the whole circuit in a straight line, but if you can't go around corners, you'll qualify badly, and you'll wear tyres out badly, and you'll be slow over a lap. So it's stretching that elastic to find what's the maximum you can do in terms of taking a bit of wing off to give yourself a really optimal top speed. And of course, with the lack of DRS in this year's car, that's been pretty essential skill. Weighing that up, and also weighing up and understanding your fuel strategy. As Cameron said before, it used to be all about the tyres. Now it's really all about the fuel load and matching that to tyre performance. But that's why this has been a wonderful race, which is just, I mean, I treasure these races in FSR where we've got changing conditions, wet into dry or dry into wet, because it just absolutely shuffles the whole deck. So Schmidt now is getting close to Heras. Let's see if Heras has got... I've got a feeling that Heras may not quite have the same top speed that Maguire had to defend with. So Schmidt, just to remember, Schmidt is on 10-lap younger tyres. Heras is running a final 22-lap stint on these options, so he needs to look after them a bit. Schmidt is on really fresh options, so he's gone for a very different strategy, and you can see now he's just really enjoying pushing these tyres and just hounding these guys. And we might see some action here. Schmidt gets a pretty good exit out of the loop onto the long Wellington straight. Has he got the edge on top speed? He's certainly got the edge on grip. And he's really bunching up to these guys. I'm liking this a lot, because Scrivens and Heras both running pretty long final stints. Scrivens on the prime, of course. Heras is having his own battle, and he's taken Scrivens. He's taken Scrivens for P3, so that's an overtake for a podium here in lap 43 of this race. And I tell you what, Scrivens is going to really need to perform to stop Lucas Schmidt getting around him, because Schmidt just wants to dispatch him and then go after Heras, because he's got the pace. These guys are side by side into... Oh, there was some contact there. Scrivens' rear end moved out onto Schmidt. I don't think it was anything intentional. He just lost a little bit of control there into Stowe, which is a very fast sort of fourth gear corner. Requires a lot of commitment, but the cars are performing beautifully there. It's like a slightly slower version of Copse. So Schmidt's having another go. Scrivens is on these prime tyres, which are really, at this stage of the race, are not doing amazing things. All these guys now are on equal fuel though. They're all loaded with fuel to make it to the end, so there's no difference on fuel. It's just on tyre type and tyre wear. And Schmidt is going to have another really big go. Scrivens moves left, which means he's got to stay left. There's been further contact there. So Scrivens really needs to watch himself. Because if you commit to the inside to cover the apex, that's all well and good, but you are required by the rules to manage the corner from there. And that just doesn't mean throw it up the inside on an impossible line. So it's good to defend, but you've got to be able to manage the corner from where you put yourself. So Schmidt is now through, and I'm very impressed with this drive. This is and not just because Lucas is a teammate of mine at Applegate Racing. It's just been a gutsy drive. He's run it as a sprint. One more pit stop. He's been on good rubber. He attacked Adam Maguire like hell, and now he's attacking Sergei Heras. Maguire is 18 seconds up the road, so that ship has sailed. But Schmidt is giving it everything now to try and catch Heras, and you know what? He's got 8 more laps to do it in. and every opportunity to do it, because the next 8 laps that these drivers are going to have to go through, potentially 8 laps of pain for Heras. Heras had to follow Scrivens for a while on the primes, although he made a pretty good job of passing him. But Heras is now on the older tyres, 10 laps older options, and Schmidt is on a lovely, lovely new set of options. So let's see if he can close up on him. All 3 drivers still within 2 seconds on the track, because Scrivens is still hanging on to them on his primes. Okay, well, Heras is not taking any prisoners through Maggots Beckets. He's using a lot of steered angle, really working those options, and he won't be able to do 8 laps like that on them, in my opinion. So we've got the 2-stop versus the 3-stop. Schmidt has stopped 3 times, so 4 separate stints, favouring the option tyre. And Heras has stopped twice, also favouring the option but running them longer. So you've got a very interesting strategic battle here. Schmidt has done his best to put himself on a very fast tyre at the business end of the race, and he's getting very close to Heras on the Wellington straight here. Heras is moving left. More contact, and really that was Schmidt again the victim of that, because he held the outside line as far as I could tell from the onboard view, and Heras unfortunately was unable to hold the line there. He was off, and that's the thing, you compromise yourself when you move to the inside. You're off the racing line, you're not on the rubbered line, so you're braking on a bit of tarmac where there's much less grip, much less rubber. And you're also approaching the angle from a far more acute, the corner from a far more acute angle. You haven't got that sort of classical racing line. So really you're looking at a cornering speed that's probably 10 or 15 kilometres per hour lower than the other car. You've got to brake a whole lot earlier if you're covering the inside line. And if you don't do it, you're going to slide into that car on the outside line. So I'm just very, very pleased for Lucas that it didn't result in significant damage to his car. Now I do feel, of course, for Sergei, who's driven a fantastic race, but I certainly from the angles that I saw, I couldn't attach any blame to Schmidt. Now Schmidt has lost a front wing end plate on the left side of his car, so he'll have a minor loss of front grip as a result of that, and this is where he's probably very, very fortunate to be on the fresher tyres. So that almighty scrap for the final step of the podium looks like it might have been sorted out. I think Heras has lost a front wing end plate from the left-hand front wing of his car as well. So Scrivens is holding on there to P4. He's certainly within sight of Schmidt, but Schmidt, relatively speaking, seems to, I think, got the upper hand on tyres at the moment. I won't take much notice of Schmidt's pace because he's been in a hell of a battle the last few laps, but he's running low 133s. Scrivens is running mostly around a low 134, high 133s, 134 flat. So yeah, I think Schmidt's going to have pace to pull away. And that was a hell of a scrap. Closed up on those 2 guys from behind, having pitted. Attacked them both, passed them both, while they in turn were having their own battle for, at the time, P3. So that was a hell of a scrap that all unfolded starting on lap 43 of a 52 lap race. So passing can happen. So Maguire, meantime, is looking very comfortable in second place. 5 laps to go. Callis has not been getting a lot of exposure by virtue of his imperious drive from 7th on the grid. Great start, bold choice of starting on the dry tyre, and avoided a pit stop and had fantastic pace as the track dried out. And really, that's the foundation on which he built the win. So Callis is on now lap 49 of 52.
Sergi just made a pit stop.
Oh, interesting. Or maybe he had a bit of damage, or maybe those tyres had gone.
Yeah, he had a massive gap behind, so it must have been.
Yes.
I think
That makes sense.
pit
Yeah, he
stop
had
because he could.
a big gap to P6. DeWalt Nell in P6, so yeah, probably figured there was... I wonder if he got a new wing. I'll just go into the front of his car and check. No, he didn't change the front wing. And so the drivers can go into their pit menu and they can instruct the crew whether they want any damage repaired or a front wing replaced. And a front wing, I think, takes a good 4 or 5 seconds. So he's decided fresh tyres were the order of the day, because I guess with a little bit of front wing damage and badly worn options, it wouldn't be much of an afternoon. So, you know, hats off to those 3 guys, Schmidt, Scrivens and Heras, for putting on a hell of a fight for us. That was probably the most entertaining pure battling of the race. I mean, I know we had the amazement of a wet and drying track, courtesy of the real world weather at Silverstone. But that was a really good scrap to see, and interesting to see a 3-stopper prevail against 2-stoppers.
Yeah, they were all on different strategies, because Lucas was on a 3-stop and Dylan and Sergi were on 1-stops, but completely different tyres.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a 3-stop versus 2 guys on a 2-stop. And the 2 guys on the 2-stop were on different tyre strategies as well. So yeah, very interesting mix. So Heras is now circulating comfortably on fresh options in P4. I don't think he should be bearing any angst towards Schmidt for that contact that occurred. I felt a little bit for Schmidt because he got some contact into that same corner into Brooklands when he passed Scrivens, escaped damage, and then he got contact into the same corner passing Heras and got a tiny bit of damage. But you know what? It looked like that was the only place he could get a pass. He needed that long straight into a slow corner to be able to get the drag and be able to get a pass done. So you've just got to gamble. You've just got to go for it.
We have a nice battle here for P6, Nell and Ernesto De Angelis. And,
oh, lovely.
Felix is coming to join the party as well, and Ernesto just tried to go up the inside of Cops, but couldn't quite do it. DeWalt held it on the outside, but this looks like it's heating up for the guys.
There you go. On lap 51 of 52. Bring it on, guys.
Oh, so Ernesto has only he's got 5 lap hold options. DeWalt is 11 lap, so that's why Ernesto is a lot quicker.
Well, 11 laps still isn't too bad. Isn't you know, the options should still be hanging on pretty nicely. Sergi Heras has just done the fastest lap of the race with a 1:31.850. So he spoilt Sanders' party, because Sander put on those options in the end to do some good laps.
Oh, Ernesto's got to run on DeWalt here. He's going to go down the inside into the S's. That's going to be tight.
Big run into Maggot Speckets. Wow. He must have had a fabulous exit out of Cops.
Yeah, DeWalt went a bit wide, so they had really bad exit speed.
Well, has that put Nell
can get past
under
as well,
attack from Van Delft has now smelt blood in the water, and he's attacking Nell into Stowe.
Bouncing off the rev limiter. Didn't quite
Van Delft was cunningly staying to the inside there to avoid the dirty air, and is he going to go inside again?
Not quite, not quite.
So into Vale and Club and onto the start-finish straight. And this is the last lap, I think, if my calculations are correctly. That was lap 51 of 52. So I think we're on the final lap.
Yes, we are. The final lap of the race.
Because, of course, these guys are a lap down. So I wonder if Felix will have a go with flag to flag. Felix, one of our fellow commentators. Go, Felix.
Yeah, commentator and
Oh,
streamer.
Nell is sliding out. Nell has slid wide on those tyres again. And Van Delft is on primes and Nell is on options. So this battle is still on.
But one battle that is not on is Sander Callas, who is
Exactly.
coming around the third
As he-
sector.
Indeed, as he majestically
42
drives
second
around
lead.
Stowe, through Vale, through Club, and takes the checkered flag to win round 6 of the ACE series of the Formula Sim Racing Championships, and to extend his lead as championship leader. So fabulous drive from Sander Callas.
Yeah, he was the
Imperious
quickest
drive.
guy. He was miles quicker than anyone else today.
Yeah. Combination of fantastic strategy, bold call on those options to start the race, and brilliant driving. And that was from P7. Adam Maguire now as he approaches the final complex, round Vale and take a right round Club, and enters the pit straight to see the checker flag and to join Callas on the podium, and he looks pretty happy. Run along the pit wall there, get close to the crew members. So fantastic drive from Adam Maguire. Bold move and a clever move onto primes. He did the hard yards at the beginning. Now Lucas Schmidt, after that incredible scrap that started around lap 43, Lucas has got himself onto the podium, and Lucas is delighted. That. That's one happy guy.
And Dylan on his first race in ACE this year, in 4th.
Congratulations, Dylan Scrivens. Great drive.
Yeah, that was very good. Very good. Unexpected as well. Being moved up to ACE. And Sergio Harris now 5th, come around the final corner after making that last minute pit stop and doing a fastest lap of the race, 1:31.3.
And Sergey started in 16th place, so that is a hell of a drive.
That Sergio was on pole.
Oh, was he? Oh, sorry, my.
But he went down. He went down to 16th. Yes.
Sorry, that was at the end of that one. Pardon me.
Ernesto Pitts. What? Oh, he was a lap down. That's why.
Well, great racing, guys. Great racing, and Sander Callas is enjoying that cool down lap. Really having a good time. He's going to break his car coming into the pits. So Sander's enjoying the whole procedure of the cool down lap. Entering the pits now, no doubt to rapturous applause from his team. And the guys in chat, we're having a lot of the drivers congratulating Sander on a fantastic drive. So imperious drive, very impressive, and some great battling as that race settled out at the end, as all the differing strategies merged into a couple of ding-dong battles in the final lap. So a fantastic race, really. The weather turned it on for us, I think, Cameron.
Yeah, the weather definitely played a big part in this race, because as we saw, Callas is definitely the fastest driver, but because he had to start lower down, it changed the strategy in the whole complex of the race.
Yeah, it really did. Added a massive element, really threw the dice. So fantastic driver. Have you got a driver of the round?
Oh, it's got to be Callas.
Yeah.
I mean, he was best part of a second a lap quicker than anyone else on average.
In incredible performance, and impressive drives as well. Adam Maguire. I mentioned already once or twice that strategic move to go for primes at the first stop, which is not an easy thing on a drying track. That paid dividends, and he fought off of a rampaging Lucas Schmidt, and Lucas, with his 3-stop strategy, pushed hard. I reckon that's going to be a pretty sweaty race seat at Lucas's house at the moment. And Dylan Scrivens fought hard, and as did Sergi. So great race, guys. Really enjoyable. I think that, you know, once again, the weather has done a fantastic thing for us, and that's the brilliance of rFactor 2, that we are on real world, real-time weather, and none of us know what's going to happen. So very exciting. Any further thoughts before we wrap it up, Cameron?
Well, let's just hope there's a bit of rain in WC tomorrow then.
Yeah, exactly.
Gives
So
us this action.
to the viewers out there, please feel very welcome. Come and join us tomorrow. We've got Pro in the afternoon and World Championship late in the afternoon. And a big thank you to Tank Applegate for running the cameras, for Cameron as well as commentating, being race director, and to the drivers. So thank you very much. Hope you've all enjoyed it, and we'll really look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you again. Thanks, Tank. We're out.